Business revenue data and repair. Establishing a track record of success before they are launched nationally as well as regionally. Metrics to gauge the success of this youth trade desk could include usage rate by the entrepreneurs themselves, improvements in compliance by youth-led businesses, as well as the number of successful market entrants by youth-led enterprises in the regional market. Together, these interventions would create a supportive foundation for Amina as well as countless other young entrepreneurs on the continent. Honorable ministers and esteemed guests, we on the behalf of Amina, as well as millions of other young entrepreneurs on the continent, acknowledge the progress that has been made through initiatives such as the AFCFTA, the Women and Youth Protocol, as well as the Guided Trade Initiative to support entrepreneurs such as Amina. However, we urge you to prioritize establishing preferential market and financial access frameworks that cater specifically to youth businesses. Let's create a simplified trade regime that reduces technical barriers and empowers youth-led businesses to expand across the continent. By offering tailored business development services, as well as easing access to essential resources such as land and capital, we can unlock the potential of youth entrepreneurs. We also need youth-responsive trade facilitation and simplified regulations alongside dedicated youth trade desks within trade ministries, the AFCFTA Secretariat, and regional economic communities to guide these young entrepreneurs through the complexities of trade. We must support collaboration by encouraging partnerships between governments, financial companies, telecom companies, and youth organizations to implement these initiatives effectively. Additionally, we also need to allocate resources, prioritizing funding and
Good afternoon, everybody. Panelists, I hope you can hear me. So if one of you can please indicate if you can hear me, and we will begin.
We can hear you. Thank you, Anela.
Thank you so much. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining this webinar. My name is Anela Simon. If you've never interacted with me before, if you don't know me, just consider me your comrade in all things trade, as well as your sounding board in all things youth and AFCFTA. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you all to episode 1 of the Youth Dome. You might be asking yourself, what do you mean episode 1? What is the Youth Dome? Well, we're going to get to that. This is a platform that we plan to unveil for you today, but also we want to talk a bit more about digital trade. And I'm assuming that if you've joined this webinar, it's because these are your interests, digital trade, as well as youth in trade and AFCFTA. Now, a borderless Africa is not just something that we think of, that we yearn for, something that we want, but more especially when it comes to trade, a borderless Africa is something that is strategic, that it has to be something that's also inclusive, okay? So not just the people at the top, the people with money and opportunities, we're making sure that we are bringing the youth into this journey so you don't feel left behind. So whether it's an AI tool in Ghana, or it's an e-commerce hub that's based in Rwanda, or another verification tool that's maybe based in Morocco, We want you to be at the center of creating those things, using those things, seeing how we can improve those things. And that's why the AFCFTA Digital Trade Protocol is very important. You might not have heard about it, but the Digital Trade Protocol was actually adopted last year in Ethiopia, and it will soon be live if it's not already live on the websites. But it was adopted earlier, which was a historic step because, again, we didn't have that before. So it lays down the groundwork, or maybe you could say the legal framework, if you want, of harmonizing all the digital rules that we're going to be using in Africa, because as you know, the rest of the world is also going digital. So harmonizing digital rules across the continent, from things like payments to platforms for data storage to digital public infrastructure. But protocols are there for legal basis, but they don't actually make the trade move. They just kind of are like a guiding GPS or rules that we have to follow. But people like you and me are what makes trade move. So whether you are a tech developer, whether you are someone with a business that can sell online, or you don't have an entrepreneurial bone in your body like me, but you are a consumer and you don't want to go to the shop all the time. That's why this is there. So if you're not part of implementing the agreement, it risks being just another opportunity that was there, but you missed it because you didn't know much about it. So anyway, we'll talk more about this as the webinar goes on. For now, I'm going to do a quick poll just to warm up, just to get some answers from you. And then we've got something very exciting to unveil. So Google, over to you. If you could stop the poll, please. So while Google is setting up the poll, just note that you will have 1.5 minutes to do this poll. It's really easy. It's just a few questions, 3 questions, 1.5 minutes. We just want to get a sense of where you are. All right, I'm told the poll is live, so please go ahead and answer. There are 3 questions. You have 1 minute and 30 seconds in which to answer them. There's about 30 seconds left. I'm counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I think I'm ending the poll. So I hope you've all answered, or you've had a chance to give your views. I'm giving you an extra 5 seconds just in case. So the first question, while people are answering, says, in your country, are there places that are either online or in person where young people can easily get information about business or the AFCFTA? And this is a yes or no question. The next question says, have you ever been a part of a meeting or an event where young people like yourselves can share their views with the AFCFTA Secretariat or with the decision makers. This is a very simple yes or no. Last question says, do you think that trade websites or trade tools are easy for young people like you to understand? And again, this is a yes or no. I'm not sure if you are all able to access the polls, but I can see that so far only about 65% of you have participated, and we really want this information because it's going to help us serve you better. So without much further ado, I am now ending the poll, and one of my colleagues will help us to analyze the results. I'm going to invite Gugu. If you're able to unmute yourself, I will now share the poll results onto the screen for everyone. Don't worry, guys, it's still anonymous, but you can see the results. Gugu, please unmute yourself.
Hi, Anele. Gugu's
Apologies.
requesting that you make her a panelist.
I've just seen it. I have upgraded her to panelist. Gugu, when you're ready, please go ahead and let us know what you think about the results. By the way, only 68% of you participated in the poll info, so let's try to be more engaging. All right, Gugu, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be here. Sorry, man, we're fighting technology on our end here in rainy Zimbabwe. Anyway, so 100% of you finally answered, so that's a win. So in essence, the very first question, right, which the question is, in your country, are there places online or in person where young people can easily get information about business or the AFCFTA? Over 41% of you said yes, which is actually quite encouraging to hear. 27% of you said no. And then 32% of you said some, but not enough or easy to access. So I think it's a bit of a disjoiner between our yes question, our yes answer, as well as the 32% of not enough. I think it's something that we'd like to follow up a little bit more in future with you guys to see what exactly do you mean. And then moving on to the second question, which is, have you ever been part of a meeting or event where young people could share their views with the AFCFTA Secretariat or trade decision makers? 57% of you said yes, and over 43% of you said no. So I think from an information perspective, we're definitely getting to the end goal where everyone in Africa knows exactly what the AFCFTA is and has got a platform to share their views about it. Then the third and final question for this particular poll is, do you think the trade websites or trade tools are easy for young people like yourself to use as well as to understand? 33% of you say yes, which definitely encouraging. However, 38% of you say no. And 29% of you said, I don't know, I have never used them. So once again, I think we're in an area of no man's land where I think there's a little bit more work to be done concerning the tools that are out there, as well as business information for young people. On the second poll, and I'll be handing over to Nandi. Thank you.
Actually, it's still me. I'm also very encouraged by some of those results, although I do think we could do better. But this is why this conversation matters. We will be taking these insights along to the upcoming AFCFTA Digital Trade Forum, which is happening in 23 days. If you are in Zambia and you have not registered, please go and register, because you need to register, be vetted, pre-approved. If you're not in Zambia, but would like to attend, I think you should also register, particularly if this is a topic that you like. It was very encouraging to see that some of you are saying you are engaging with tools, but also discouraging that some people are not, or they think it's difficult. And that's why I said we are on Youth Dome episode 1, because the Youth Dome aims to do exactly that, to bring you closer to the information. We will simplify the trade rules in language that you can understand, making sure that we help young people engage with the policymakers and implementers, make sure your voice is a part of it, and also making sure that we spotlight your businesses. It's basically a community for us to make sure that we're always part of the conversation. With that said, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Edna to please walk us through the Youth Dome in 2 minutes.
Thank you so much, Anele. Once again, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Welcome to each and every single one of you who have just joined or who have been with us since the very beginning. Just like Anele mentioned, my name is Edma Lawa, and I will be taking you through the platform that has been created to not only just share information, but to build a community for young traders and young entrepreneurs. So I'm going to share my screen, and please do let me know if you can see it, because as it stands now, I won't be able to do anything else.
We can see your screen. Please go ahead.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so this is the Youth Dome platform, and as the headline says, it is there to basically bring together young people to create positive change in Africa. It is also there to empower African youth to drive innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic drive across the continent, fostering a great or bright future, for Africa's trade landmark or landscape. So this is the website that has been created, or the platform that has been created for young Africans who are either in the trade sector or want to emerge in a trade sector. So these are our 3 boxes. Again, I'm going to quickly run through this. I only have 2 minutes. So these are our 3 boxes. This is the homepage of the platform. The homepage, like I like to tell everybody, is where you can find bits and bobs of every single page on the platform. So if you do not want to necessarily read about all the different pages, which I would advise you to do, you can find snippets of information on the homepage. So I like to call the homepage the information page, the overall information page, where you can access certain key features on the platform. My favorite key feature on this platform is the article feature. And what this feature basically does is that it publishes articles from organizations that has to do with specific topics that are in relation to trade, entrepreneurship, the economy, the AFCFTA, and so on and so forth. And the reason why I like this specific feature on the platform is because it also gives the opportunity for other young entrepreneurs who have conducted surveys or research, or who have put together articles, to also publish their articles on this specific part of or feature of the platform. So it gives other young entrepreneurs who have just maybe built a company or set up a company, or who is a part of an organization, the opportunity to share their knowledge on specific topics with other young entrepreneurs and young people across the continent. So now let's move on to the About Us page. And again, the About Us page basically is where you can find out all information about the Youth Dome, our inspirations, our missions, our core values, our goals in terms of why this platform has been created in the first place, and what it serves, its purpose. All that information can be found here. And one thing that I like about this page as well is that when you click on Learn More, it pops up with little boxes that talks about our philosophy, for example, what the dome in Youth Dome basically signifies and what it stands for. So make sure that you utilize every single part of the platform, click on every single thing that is clickable, and make sure that you get as much information as you want. Now let's move on to what we do, which is the core foundation of the platform. We like to call these little headlines that you can see here the 5 pillars of the Youth Dome. And why do we call it that? Is because it actually the pillars that holds the foundation, the source of the youth dorm. And I would urge every single user today who is in this on this webinar to make sure that they utilize every single one of these opportunities that have been presented on the What We Do page. I'm quickly going to go through maybe one or two and then basically move on to what we need to do next. So this is Meet the Captains page. And what Meet the Captains basically is, just like Anneli mentioned, is that it gives the opportunity for young traders, young entrepreneurs to meet captain industries in a quarterly series that will be conducted through popular poll runs. And I love that because, for example, I am in the energy sector. As much as I love the AFCFTA, I love governance and policy, my main passion is the energy sector. So just imagine having to be able to meet an industry player every quarterly of the year to share information with me as to how they've been able to manage or innovate themselves or maneuver through a specific sector that is dear to me. That is basically what Meet the Captains basically stands for. And I absolutely love this feature. So I would urge everybody again to make sure that they use all these opportunities as much as possible. Let's move on to Trade Bites Tuesdays. So Trade by Tuesdays, again, like I mentioned, is that it gives you the opportunity to understand the instruments of the AFCFTA and the protocols of this AFCFTA in broken down language. For me personally, I believe that when it comes to policies or agreements that has to do with international diplomacy, the language sometimes can be a barrier for people to understand what exactly is going on. And it can also be quite overbearing to know how to even maneuver yourself if you're trying to utilize an instrument or a tool such as the AFCFTA. But what Trade Bites Tuesdays does is that it gives you the opportunity to understand in broken language and broken content every single aspect of the AFCFTA. Just like the name mentioned, these presentations are published on the platform every single Tuesdays. So you would be willing, or you'd have to be willing and anticipate the presentations that will be presented or published on the platform. This is one example of the presentations that have been published already on the platform, which is the introduction to the AFCFTA protocol on trade in goods. And I love this because, as you can see, it breaks down the language. If you are a trader in goods, you would be able to understand how to utilize the tools of the AFCFTA to better your company or to better your business, and to make sure that you understand how you can cross-border trade or merge markets with other countries as well. Okay, I was going to do opportunity Thursdays, but I think my time is up. Or can I do opportunity?
Your time is up. But we
Okay,
will
time is
share
up.
the link soon. So that's all good. So this is
Okay.
a platform that's built for you guys to simplify trade for you, to meet the captains, like she said, also to just share your inventions, share your interventions. Handing over to my colleague, Nandi. Thanks, Nandi.
Thank you very much, Anele. Thank you for those opening remarks. And Edma, thank you so much for walking us through the Youth Dome platform. My name is Nandi Mkwanazi. Greetings and a warm welcome to our Tech Meets Trade webinar, where we'll be discussing the digital blueprint for Borderless Africa. Today, as the Youth Dome, we've brought together Africa's most forward-thinking digital leaders to showcase the momentum they've built to achieve innovation beyond borders. As we know, young Africans are already building, exporting, and scaling across borders, but they are also being held back by our dated system, fragmented regulations, and unequal access to tools and capital. To help me demystify and illuminate some of the digital trade landscape under the FCFTA, and to foster a cross-border and cross-sector dialogue, we've got an esteemed panel. And to start off with, I'm going to introduce Treasure Mapanga, who's the COO of AE Trade. We also have Zanele Abraham Matoma, who's the founder of Willow Health, Joining us this afternoon is also Solomon Togbo, who's the co-founder and COO at JStream Africa. Last but not least, we also have Joshua Faru from Kala, who will be joining us. Then when we're done with the Tech COO panel, we will be moving on to have a conversation with Mr. Oswald, who will be taking us through his platform, Trust Your AI. So to get us started, I will welcome Solomon Togbo just to give us a brief background of what it is that you do at JStream.
All right. Thank you, Nandi, and a warm welcome to everyone. At JetStream Africa, we are a technology logistics company, and we facilitate international trade by bridging the gap from point A to point B, and most importantly, give empowerment through the financing people need to run their entire operations. And on top of the icing on top of the cake, as we talk about technology, is to give visibility at every point along the chain for everyone's operations. So that's what JetStream is all about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Solomon. I'll ask Treasure to please unmute yourself and just please share a bit about what AE Trade does so that our attendees today can understand more about the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this exciting conversation. So the AE Trade Group is a social enterprise. We were basically inspired by opportunities that we could see opening up in Africa, especially driven by the AFCFTA and other protocols at the African Union. So what we do is we basically have a number of solutions that we've brought out to the market, targeting three groups: small and medium-sized enterprises, women, and youth-owned and led businesses. Why? Because we saw that there was a real possibility that we may talk and advocate for these groups, have the protocols, but at the end of the day, not provide the practical instruments that would make it possible. And I'm talking here about the breadth of this, an inclusive approach, those in the rural areas, those who are in the cities, those who are in different regions on the continent. So what we do is, so Koku.Africa is our flagship, which brings everybody together because it solves for three chronic issues. One is know how to do business. So you come into our community and ecosystem to learn some specific aspects of changing your mindset in terms of taking advantage of the emerging markets. Secondly, we also have access to market itself. So where are the markets that are relevant for my particular product? So there is that coaching and support. And thirdly, access to affordable finance. We are basically working to gather partners that are sensitive, especially to the groups of SMEs, women and youth, who I don't need to tell this audience are the ones that often find the biggest barriers. So we are trying to dismantle those barriers and working with different partners. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Treasure. You know, the work that you're doing with EA Trade Group is phenomenal. Of course, it takes more than good intentions to steer and build a sustainable business. And you've really touched on some very critical issues, access to market, and of course, that pinpoint of financing. So I'll allow Zanele to just unmute herself and just share a bit about what Willow Health does.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So my name is Zanele. It's so strange when I cannot see myself on the screen.
Sorry about that.
I'm using my phone because my laptop is just playing games. Okay, so I'm the CEO and founder of Willow. How long do I have?
Just under a minute.
Oh, okay. So we are solving the problem of access to healthcare, sort of like your Uber for health. We offer healthcare for people at home and people in the workplace, mainly dealing with B2B clients, where you would have a health insurer or a medical aid company saying that, hi, we've just discharged Nandi, who's one of our members. We want her to continue with the treatment she was getting in hospital at home. And that's where we bring
I think we may have lost Zanele to the internet bandits. Zanele, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so we just got a bit about the incredible work that you're doing at Willow Health, bridging the gap and ensuring that healthcare is accessible and, of course, convenient. I will allow Joshua to come through and unmute himself and just tell us a bit more about Kala and what he actually does at Kala.
Thank you, Nandi. Thank you, FCFTA, for having us. Kala is a South African name meaning to spark. So we exist to catalyze Africa's digital transformation. You can see even in our logo, it's a flame. So we believe that Africa should be a player in the fourth industrial revolution. And how we do that is we are an ecosystem builder. We bring together all the guys that are involved in making sure that we reach there and we catalyze them. AFCFTA is one of our partners. We are looking at having local smartphone manufacturing here in Africa. We had a big conference with them last year and also this year at the Global AI Summit, and I will talk more about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joshua. I'm sure that everybody that is in attendance recognizes that we've got, Africa's best, and we've got industry of captains in the room. So, I urge you to take out your pen and paper, make notes, and be sure, of course, to connect further with us through our social media platforms after the webinar so you can learn more about the opportunities that the Youth Dome offers youth, and of course, to learn more about the captains that we have in the room. So, as we know, the FCFTA aims to reduce barriers and drive integration. But what does that actually look like? And what does it actually take to expand across African markets, especially in fragmented regulatory and digital ecosystems? For you, Solomon, you've mentioned briefly what the work that JStream does. If you can just tell us about what the biggest challenges and opportunities you've faced when scaling seamless HR across the African market.
Yes, thank you, Nandi. That's indeed one big one. And it's primarily from the fact that the people who are facing challenges normally are the big guns, people who have established factories and are producing on very large scale, and they have these challenges. So then it just makes you do an extension. If the big guys in Africa are having challenges, then what about the everyday entrepreneur who's now building right from scratch? And you ask yourself, what are some of the challenges that they face? And what I've seen personally has to do with the fact that the regulators are actually acting in isolation. And very commonly, you present one document from a country to the other, and they don't know what it is, or you are not accorded the necessary benefits. It's very common here in West Africa. So prior to the discussions of the African Free Trade Area, there were some existing sub-regional treaties, and very common is to transport goods seamlessly in West Africa. It would interest you to know that there are even fractions as we speak, because the Francophones have a different appreciation of how to execute, and the Anglophones also. So one would expect that with the overlap of the entire African treaty, it should be much seamless. And the answer is no. I've seen instances when people have exported goods from Accra to Southern Africa, and they face challenges. They simply say, I don't recognize these documents. I'm not supposed to give you this tax waiver, etc., etc. And the discussions have been escalated through the various organizations that you could have, the customs offices, the chambers of commerce, and it would interest you to know that there hasn't been a clear roadmap. So this is just to give you an appreciation of the challenge that currently exists, talking about moving goods from one place to the other. However, it's all not bleak and gloomy because there have been pockets of success. Nevertheless, we've had very specific successes between certain countries, notably between, well, I'll give credits to Kenya and Ghana. That's one of the corridors that I know has been very active. And the other thing that I'd like to mention with regard to the infrastructure has to do with what already exists and its similarity. So when it comes to the customs administration, there are various platforms that they use in administration of their duties, the executions. And what I've realized is that when the systems are very similar. So an example of that would be the Unipass. The Unipass is just a website, a platform that keeps all the HS codes and acts as a warehouse of tax administration and compliance and classifications and all of that. If both countries have similarities, then you realize that it's a lot easier to champion the cause of AFTA. So talking about the challenges, these are the existing challenges. And indeed, it's a giant because the existing companies, the big guys we know of in Africa are facing them. And then it just draws a big and gloomy one where the young entrepreneur stands. Hopefully, as we progress in the discussion, we can highlight on some of the opportunities that young ones like ourselves, the youth, can definitely ride on. Thank you, and over to you, Nandi.
Thank you so much, Solomon. So you mentioned something that's very critical when it comes to policy development and how we're still seeing that policymakers are working in silos and not really, including young people in the room or even other ecosystem partners. And this is one of the gaps that AE Trade is working to bridge, particularly by including, the often overlooked demographic of people that are young people that are based in the rural areas. So a question to you, Treasure, is what policy or ecosystem shifts are most urgent to enable, inclusive digital e-commerce? Of course, Solomon has mentioned that there have been some regional success, particularly, with East Africa, particularly Kenya, who, we know that are very digitally advanced. So from the perspective of somebody or an organization that works predominantly with young people and also includes policymakers in their decision, what are some of the shifts that you think are the most urgent to enable that inclusive digital ecosystem?
Thank you very much, Nandi, for your question. Indeed, Solomon has already touched on a number of important points, but I might add that when it comes to policy shifts to build an integrated ecosystem, what we really need is to see more policy harmonization, across the countries, because the AFCFTA is actually a good example of what is possible when countries get together. So having protocols, I know many people say protocols are not the thing that will make a change, but it's a foundation, it's a starting point. I think now what we are really pushing for is the domestication aspect, right? And making it concrete and feasible for businesses to now start to get involved and to participate. And I think one of the key mindset changes that I think we've been talking about is this public-private partnership, bringing the stakeholders who are going to make this work together. I think in many ways, governments are sort of forging ahead, very confident that they've done the studies, they know what needs to be done. But when the world that I live in, especially with micro, small, and medium-sized businesses, when we talk to them about AFCFTA, they say, what's that? So we have to really do a lot of sensitization and awareness about what we're excited about as an opportunity. It's certainly, so access to information, and I love what you're doing on the Youth Dome platform, because it's not just people in rural areas, it's highly sophisticated, educated, people that are really not aware of what this is all about. So I think information and the policy harmonization, I think, is extremely important. Domestication is important, but I think the other point is, which is a softer issue, it's about the power of collaboration. We've been talking about collaboration. I think you talk about it too. But sometimes I find in the spaces where we're working, there's an instinct to say, how can I compete and take that idea myself and run with it? And so when competition overrides collaboration, because we need both in markets, what you do is you stifle the opportunities to really grow and expand the cake. And what we're saying is, let's grow this cake so that it's bigger and we all get a piece of it and it's beneficial. So I think it's about mindset at the end of the day that needs to change. And it's also about building trust in our solutions and trusting ourselves that we can do this. And I think there are so many amazing solutions, especially by young entrepreneurs. We did a call for proposal for young entrepreneurs in 2021 across the continent, and we had 51 countries participate on our platform, 4,900 innovators, ed tech, health tech, all kinds of different fields. Our biggest challenge was that policymakers don't seem to appreciate that innovation is everywhere on the continent. But if you happen to live in certain centers, you have more access to ecosystems that support you. So the challenge is, how do we build ecosystems that include those who come from places where they may not have the same enabling environment? And I think this is where organizations like yours are so well placed. And we're trying to do our bit as well to sort of say, let's have a baseline, so that as Africans, we have some minimum standard that we can access, and then of course build from that.
Oh, incredible inputs, Treasure. You're so right. I think it's high time that we as Africans have our own standard that speaks to us and addresses the challenges, and of course also highlights all the successes that we've made as a continent over the years. So that private-public collaboration is very key. And when it comes to implementing policies, again, we are still seeing loopholes, like you mentioned, where government really sometimes is not really in touch with the people that the policy is intended for. And of course, now we know that a lot of youth, Africa is a very young continent, and they are, digitally able to access a lot of information, but still, shockingly, a lot of them don't know what the AfCFTA and other related policies are about. And of course, when Joshua was just giving us a highlight of what Color does, he mentioned some of the digital transformation that they do. And, picking up from where Treasure was discussing of how do we actually create systems that can work not only for people that are based in the economic hubs, but also include the demographics that is often left out, which are young people that are in the rural areas. So for you, Joshua, what do you think it takes for us to design a digital system that works across borders, especially when policy and infrastructure differ? We've heard how Solomon has mentioned some of the challenges that they've made, within the different regions, and some of the fragmentation that happens with policies. So from your perspective, working with young people, and as an AI researcher, how do you see, or how do you envision a digital system that works across borders?
Well, Africa is 54 countries based on where you are sitting. It may be 55, maybe 56. So that already provides the problem. We are not one country. Well, sometimes the West talks about Africa as if it's one country, but we are as diverse as can get. We have North Africa. So the moment that we recognize we are independent sovereign states, and bringing them together is hard. For example, we have about 52% of African countries have consumer protection laws for online protection, and 61% recognize e-transactions legally. So, so we already have some that do not have the e-commerce laws, that do not recognize e-transactions. We have data localization. Some weeks back in the Global AI Summit, we had this whole discussion about, should we have open data? We have Kenya, Rwanda, and Nigeria who actually mandate local storage of sensitive data, which complicates cross-border data flows, because we are talking about, a borderless Africa. But we have AU data policy framework, which is a good thing, which aims to harmonize data governance and enable cross-border flows while protecting privacy. So Africa's digital system should showcase both progress and and gaps. For example, the fact that I've showed you that there are some countries which mandate data localizations, there are some which do not, and then we also have some countries which do not have undersea cables. We have PAPS, which is a huge one, which I'll talk about later, but I'll also talk about AI because Africa holds like less than 1% of global data center capacity, despite housing 18% of the world's population. So we already have some things that are pulling us back. Some guys have said that AI's economic potential is 1.2 trillion, others 1.5 trillion for Africa. And if we are to get there, it requires scaling compute power and regional cloud infrastructure. Again, back to regionalism, back to sharing data among ourselves, back to tapping talent that is within a region as opposed to within a country. So the vast majority of the developing world, which includes most countries in Africa, contributes under 5% of both AI research publication and grants. So now where do we go from here? One, I would argue, is a policy harmonization, adopt regional frameworks, the AU data policy framework that I mentioned, to align data governance, cybersecurity, and transaction laws. I also argue that establishing cross-border regulatory sandboxes to test solutions without conflicting national policies. That would be key. For example, the cross-border regulatory sandbox would bridge Nigeria's data localization and Rwanda's cloud-first approach. You see, those are two different approaches, but then a sandbox here it is. And then interoperability by design, build systems using open standards, for example, perhaps open systems, AU digital ID framework to ensure seamless integration within borders. And of course, digital inclusion. We had the Kigali Action Plan by the ITU, which outlines a roadmap for digital inclusion, which includes affordable connectivity, digital transformation, enabling policy and regulatory environments. So actioning this, actually the ITU was in Kenya again some few weeks back, and they were talking really hard about implementing the 2021 Kigali Action Plan on digital transformation. Again, the data sovereignty solutions. How we can do that is develop regional cloud hubs to balance data localization laws with cross-border flows. That's key. Let me talk about the sandbox, which is really key, and let me give you something that worked. So in Singapore, they had Global Pay, which is a Singapore-based fintech, and it was developing blockchain-based platform for instant and low-cost cross-border payments for small and medium enterprises. So what they did is that they were able to go through Singapore and Australia in a controlled environment, allowing them to gather valuable feedback, refine their product without the regulatory pushback that they would get. Yes, so those are my submissions. Thank you.
So, to your last point, Joshua, as entrepreneurs, especially those that are developing services and products, that need or rely a lot on feedback from consumers and clients, it really helps when you remove some of those barriers, like you mentioned. And, one of the recurring themes that I'm hearing from all the speakers that have spoken is that digital inclusion is the policy harmonization. And, I'll ask Zanele to unmute herself because I know that with Willow Health, she has, of course, gained some very unique lessons, especially when it comes to digital trade enablement. But before I jump into that, I would like you to please share what are some of the unique lessons that Willow Health has learned, in delivering impact at scale, especially to underserved or rural areas.
Thank you. I think the lesson that we learned was that when it comes to underserved areas, we call them the unhealthed because they don't have medical aid, they're the missing middle or the missing link. One of the reasons that we learn is that shiny does not always work. Because when we started, you want that shiny app and all of that. And then when you are in the continent, when you are in Africa, this is not Silicon Valley, it will not work. Create a platform or use a technology that is, one, user-friendly, and that is the language that is spoken by the people. And for us, the language, when we went back to the drawing board, the language that was spoken by the people was WhatsApp. Our moms are on WhatsApp groups. We are on WhatsApp groups. Our aunties are on WhatsApp groups and things like that. And then one had to learn that, say, okay, now let me go back to the drawing board. Let me not speak a Zanele language, etc. Let me not build for myself. Let me build for my users. And that's when we started having a simple WhatsApp chatbot. That chatbot brought us traction where a person will go in, click hi, and then will go and get their medication from the public hospital and deliver to their home using like your Uber model, which was very scalable as that brought us traction. That traction in turn got us, in the eyes of investors as far as Silicon Valley, and we started getting investors and the company started growing. So there's one lesson I would like to impart to the audience there, that shiny does not always work. Build for your audience. Who is your audience? Is it underserved? Is it people in the rural areas, etc.? Make it relatable to them. Thank you.
Incredible. So it's about meeting the needs of your consumer or customer where they are. So it loosely ties to that question that I had earlier, excuse me, about digital trade enablement. And of course, you've used the feedback that you've got from your market to reach them where they are and addressing some of the challenges that they had to make healthcare not only accessible, but very convenient for them. So, as an entity that works, of course, within the healthcare and logistics sector, how would you then suggest or just give us maybe some points in how healthcare logistics innovations can contribute to a wider digital trade enablement?
So my suggestions, especially when it comes to healthcare in the continent, we have infrastructure issues, we have capacity issues, and we also have, healthcare workers leaving our countries and going to be working in the UK and all of that. So my advice will be find a way to leverage that technology, be it WhatsApp, be it a platform, find a way to leverage technology. And now with the advent of AI, to make sure that you utilize the limited health resources that are available to still give access to health to our communities. I'll give you an example. We also do digital nurse and digital doctor consultation, where one can just consult via WhatsApp. So you can still leverage that nurse talent that has left Zimbabwe, that has left South Africa for the UK. They can log on. They give, on the days that they're not working, they're still in the UK making extra money. They can log on, still make extra money in the continent, but also imparting their skill, their knowledge, and imparting their expertise. So this is where now you tie up the human touch with the tech. So leverage existing resources, the ones that are out of the country, find ways to still leverage them.
It's incredible how you, as Wheeler Health, seen to address one of the biggest challenges that we have as a continent with the talent drain that we've seen happen over the years. And of course, now I hope that people are listening, that they don't have to Google and, prepare for death when Google tells them that they're dying in the next hour. They can actually have certified and trained professionals give them answers and responses to some of the pressing healthcare issues if they, of course, connect through Wheeler Health. So Solomon, as we heard, Zanele touched on some infrastructural challenges that we currently have. From your perspective with the work that you do with Jetstream Africa, what infrastructure is still missing, to enable seamless digital business operations continent-wide? Of course, earlier you did mention how some regions and countries are doing incredibly well, and that we can, of course, use some of the models that they've implemented and have worked so well in the regions to be able to scale operations on a continent level. But now when we're zoning into infrastructural challenges, which are maybe the top two that you can say are still missing in the enablement of digital business operations? Solomon? Okay, I believe that we've lost Solomon, so I will move on to Joshua. Joshua, if you can please just unmute yourself and quickly just tell us, what are some of the untapped opportunities for youth in the public and private digital transformation?
Thank you. What are some of the untapped opportunities for youth? Well, first of all, is to remember that youth is the majority, and to remember Chinua Achebe. I'm a fan of Chinua Achebe, and he once wrote that the problem with Africa is simply and squarely a problem of its leaders. So when it comes to youth, we have to remember that we have been given an Africa which still has a lot of enduring legacies of colonialism. I love the fact that it's a Pan-African setting. And color is very Pan-African. We believe that Africa should be a player in this revolution that we are experiencing. So the youth is to take up, to be virtuous leaders, to be value-driven leaders, and to look at the problems that we have all shared at the unfragmented laws that are there, and actually come together for the good of the continent rather than self-aggrandizement. Ultimately, this question is more of a value question, because if we can really look at the soul, at the software, then the hardware becomes very easy. So I believe that it's in the values. If the youth can be value driven, then the continent can thrive.
Incredible submissions, Joshua. Of course, youth are the future and are the drivers of change that we want to see. So Treasure, if you can just please elaborate on how is Sokuku helping break the barriers for SMMEs and youth-led brands to access continental markets?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we basically are offering the platform for everyone, but it's a no-brainer that in Africa, it's the youth that are the majority in terms of demographics, and they are also more digitally savvy. So, so what we have, if you visit Sokuku, it's a marketplace that allows you to whatever product, as long as it is made in Africa, it's allowed to be on our platform. We actually discriminate against all brands that are not made in Africa. We have a technical issue, though, that we've been addressing with the policymakers, because there are the issues of rules of origin and making sure that there is a proper certification around those products. And so we partnered with ASO actually to start to look at making sure that we could have a proper certification. What we also see as an area for development is actually branding for youth-made products. We don't have any that I'm aware of. I know there have been initiatives like She Trades, which talk about making sure that when I buy this product, I know that I'm supporting a woman somewhere, and there's a whole story, perhaps a community that's going to benefit from buying that product. But I am putting it out there and saying we would love to be able to have an initiative for young people, young entrepreneurs with their products, where we can deliberately brand them together and create visibility and appreciation for what young entrepreneurs are bringing, and to see what's different about this exciting generation. So but what we are doing with Sokuku and how we are using the talent from young people to make the products visible is we have almost our entire team at Sokuku is below the age of 35, that's for sure. I'm one of the few people that is above. But we've also started a program of digital trade advisors who are basically going to solve the problem of how do I get a farmer that has an excellent product that they could sell that isn't, necessarily in a position to quickly gain all the knowledge and skills to be digitally savvy. They can do it if they have time, So as they develop those skills, what kind of mentorship and handholding can we provide them? to become able to use the tools. So we see this as one of the big game changers, because we've just had this week started a program and identified 32 potential trainees for a one-year program, where our contention is that what is a problem in terms of the digital divide and gap can actually be addressed by these young people who are graduates, maybe sitting at home wondering what's next for me. So basically for us, Sokuku, it's a platform. It's more than just an e-commerce platform. It's an ecosystem where we're trying to solve for the different challenges and to harness opportunities so that we can work together with stakeholders to create greater awareness and visibility of the excellent products that Africa has, and also promote really active sales and to really boost and build the market, if you like, from the bottom up. So we feel at the beginning of our journey, even though we have been, Sokuku has been around since 2020. And we think the game changer is definitely having young people be part of it, to drive it literally, because they are the ones who see the opportunities, and we are open to that. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Treasure. I mean, incredible work that you're doing with Sokuku, especially, bridging that digital divide, like you mentioned. So I do believe that Solomon is able to respond to the question that I had just before we lost that connection. So Solomon, just to reiterate, the question was, what infrastructure is still missing to enable seamless digital business operations continent-wide? Solomon, are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, I do believe that the internet bandits are at it again, and they're causing some tech challenges on Solomon's side. So I would like to thank our panelists for the wonderful contributions and some of the insights they've given us in how they've built and scaled operations that not only bridge the digital divide, but they also help young entrepreneurs on the continent scale their businesses. Just to close off our Tech CEO panel, I will introduce Oswald Ananadaga, who is the founder of Trust Your AI, where we're going to be having a conversation with him, where we'll be spotlighting his incredible achievements through his platform. So Oswald, are you able to unmute yourself?
Hello, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are. Thank you so much for joining us. Just briefly, if you can just tell, the attendees in the room, who is Oswald, and just give us a bit of your background and what inspired you to build Trust Your AI.
Yeah, I like that you call it Trust Your AI, because we called it Truster AI, but everyone calls it Trust Your AI. And I think it's been it's sort of worked into everything that we've done. So my name is Oswald Ananadaga. I am the founder and CEO of Floodgates International, which is the creator of Truster AI. We are a company that started in Ghana 5 years ago in 2020 during COVID. And we've expanded to the US. So we're also in the US in San Francisco, California. And what we basically did and where we started, I think it would be better for me to share a story than to just talk about different facts. Okay. So all of this started when we identified that there was a challenge with identity verification, not only in Ghana, but in Africa. But we did want to start solving this challenge in Ghana. So what we did was we created a digital identity system that is able to integrate with various data sources, and especially pitch this to the financial sector. And what it had the ability to do was to allow for a person to create a single digital identity, which they had complete control of on their mobile phone, and they could carry anywhere, and then use their biometrics, that's fingerprints and their facial recognition, to identify themselves wherever they go, or to complete an online transaction very securely. And what this basically did was It eliminated fraud in the ecosystem. It allowed people to prove their transactions, and it also made it easier for people to access services. And we had a bit of a shaking when the country passed legislation that said that the only ID that could be used for verification was the national ID, which was new at that time, even though we had literally built what the national ID was doing at that time as our digital ID platform. And ours was even borderless. So if I was verified in Ghana and I show up in Kenya, you can basically still verify and know that, yes, this is Oswald. But if I hand you a national ID from Ghana, which is issued by the government directly, you will not be able to verify that easily. But from Truster, you'll be able to simply use my phone number or my email address, and a prompt to come. Once I scan my face or I've used my fingerprint, then you have access to the verified identity profile that I created and verified. And we basically now expanded this to various countries. And then we started working in the area of digital services, connecting financial services. Because once you've completed a person's profile, we connected to credit data sources and a lot of other data sources to verify other things that pertain to people. And then we basically made the work of the financial sector very easy. And we ended up creating a financial solution that allowed people to access financial services without actually having to go through the process of filling long forms or even understanding a lot of the things that they had to do before they could do them. So we make it possible to open a bank account in less than 5 minutes by simply going onto the platform and using your verified identity on Truster to be able to apply to the bank and then get a bank account done instantly, because we complete the entire KYC profile and then we send it directly to the bank for processing. And we also built a credit platform that reduced the time for getting credit from the bank from between 3 weeks to over 3 months to less than 5 minutes, because this basically verifies all of your credit information and allows you to access to obtain a loan from the bank in a few minutes. And we are partnered with Fidelity Bank, Stanbic, and a lot of other banks. Our systems are approved by the Central Bank, Bank of Ghana, and we are basically rolling this out to as many people as possible. So this was the first part of our work, and we won a lot of awards, especially with the novelty of the nature of our identity platform. Well, and some of those awards include being adjudged the #1 democracy affirming startup in Africa in Tech for Democracy, which was by the US Department of State, the Microsoft and University, for which I was invited to the White House. And we also placed top 5 worldwide for that technology. We also won the Global Africa Startup Competition, which was handled by the AfCFTA, the African Union, the A-Trade Group, which is where I also became very familiar with Sukoku when we went for the Intra-Africa Trade Fair in Egypt, I think 2 years ago. So we have basically operated in this way, and we strongly believe that digital identity is fundamental. It's one of the fundamental things that needs to be solved for the AfCFTA to be easily implemented. One of the reasons is that the World Bank estimates that over 1 billion people across the world lack any form of verifiable identity. And a lot of them who have an identity do not have any way of verifying it online. Out of the 1 billion people, 500 million of them are from Africa. This means that we are opening up trade lines and trade borders to facilitate trade between people who we have no way of verifying. And then we realize that it is possible for this and I don't have any way of verifying who the person is.
Sorry, Oswald, we lost you there for a second.
Hello?
Hi, Oswald. Yes, so we lost you there for a second towards the end.
Okay, can you just probably remind me of the last thing I said?
Okay. So, you had obviously mentioned all the wonderful achievements that you've made through the platform, some of the awards that you got, and you were just touching on digital identity and how it's one of the biggest issues that are facing different entrepreneurs in the ecosystem. And just for the sake of time, I will ask you if you can just share how the platform actually works, and of course, how it solves the problems that you've mentioned, and why AI is the right tool to build trust on scale.
Exactly. So, continuing on this story, we need to work on digital identity to ensure that we are able to verify who we are trading with, and trust is very, very important. And so we need to have a way of verifying identities across various countries to allow and facilitate for people to trust the various protocols and utilize the protocols that we have implemented for our intra-African trade. I believe that payment systems are also another very important area, which are also being addressed by PAPs and other institutions. But the race for solving the issue of digital identity has not been given as much resources and efforts as it's supposed to be. And it may be that we might realize that too late. So we are working very hard to ensure that we help to provide these verification services across Africa for all trade platforms as well. Secondly, when we built these systems, we realized in the advent of the LLM ages, not just AI, but the LLM ages, that it is possible for AI to solve some of the biggest challenges that we have in Africa, especially with digitalization. So digitalization is promised to accelerate the way we do things in Africa. But however, one of the challenges that we have is that we have a literacy challenge, and then we have a digital literacy challenge. And the literacy challenge is people being able to understand formal languages that are used internationally in speaking, and then the digital literacy challenge is being unable to use digital systems. And so being able to use mobile apps and websites and browse the internet to find information. But AI actually solves those two things. And what we did was we went ahead to build an AI platform that is able to find information and collect information, and then allow for people to interact with this data using an intelligent application layer that sits on it. It's just a lot of technical information. But then imagine that there is an AI agent that understands the entire AFCFTA protocols, that has a list of all the businesses in South Africa, that has a list of all the professionals in South Africa. And then I come and I ask, I would like to connect with businesses that do ABC, and it can easily get that information for me. It can write a report on the South African market. If I say, oh, hi, I sell shea butter, will I be able to, which markets in Africa will I be able to connect with, and where can I purchase this? It's able to read reports and data information from various countries, analyze that intelligently, and tell me the 5 countries in Africa where I should be looking to do this, and also connect me to information. So it's like having a super assistant that knows all of the documents. We see a lot of reports. You can see reports that are stacked up like this, and you have to read all of them to understand what goes on in there. But when you have questions and you have an intelligent assistant, like, for example, think about it as ChatGPT that actually knows specific domain-specific data. And that sort of just opens up everything. So we have a platform where businesses can build AI agents and then deploy them on their websites, deploy them on various sites. And anybody can come and connect with those AI agents, and then ask questions, request for information, request for services, and be able to still connect and then access all of this. And we believe that using this and the ability to be able to translate this into various languages. At the moment, we support over 57 different languages on our platform. And not only for text, but also for voice as well. So you could basically speak to it. I could pick up my phone and say, in Kenya, what percentage of cocoa was imported in Kenya in the past 2 years? And it basically analyzes that data and tells me this amount of cocoa is imported. And I said, how do you compare that to the demand that is there? This information is probably hidden in some documents and reports somewhere that are huge that if I decide to read, I'll probably never be able to find. But being able to take this information, convert it to local languages, so you can speak in the language of your choice, understand it in the language of your choice. Language is no longer a barrier. You don't need to learn how to use an app or how to browse the internet, how to search for information. You just need to ask, and then you have the information available to you. This breaks
Incredible
down
work.
the literacy barrier, and it breaks down the digital literacy barrier that we have. And we believe that this is one of the biggest opportunities for us in Africa to use this to accelerate our growth and our development. And it's really, really critical to trade. So we believe what we are doing now is empowering every business to build an AI agent, empowering every government agency and all that to expose their information, their documentation and their data through their AI agents to allow for people to simply connect and find information in a second using the power of AI that we have right now. And we currently have users in over 54 countries. We are working with a lot of very large institutions, working with news agencies, working with banks, working with government institutions to deploy these systems as quickly as possible. And we believe
Just
that
to
we are going to
interject,
become
Oswald.
a major impact in Africa. Thank you.
I'm so sorry to disturb your thought of pattern. So just to interject, of course, incredible achievement that you've done. I mean, you know, you've ticked off a lot of the boxes that not only users have, but also companies that are looking to scale. And of course, verify information, payments, and identity on various platforms. So in closing this particular session, which was to spotlight the incredible work that you do, that you've, of course, taken us through, in 30 seconds, could you just tell us what do you want youth, policymakers, and investors to take away from your work?
Well, I would say that technology and AI, not just AI, but also digital technology, has the ability to transform Africa. And there is a lot of policy, there are a lot of policies and regulation being developed, guidelines, but there isn't enough sufficient funding. And it sounds like a cliche when the youth say there isn't enough funding, because we've said it too many times and not enough action has been taken in it. Governments have to build venture capitalist arms, whereby they intentionally take the initiative to support businesses and digital technology startups to allow them to scale faster, to allow them to run all this. We're able to do these things because Microsoft gave us over $150,000 in sponsorship. I don't think it would have been possible for us to build and scale something like this if we didn't have that grant, amongst other things. And I think that Africa should be doing this ourselves. So I think that there should be more investment in data, more investment in technology startups, and then the opportunity is there, the skills are there, the youth are ready, the energy is there. I believe that if this happens, we are going to be able to achieve our goals as a continent. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you so much for that, Oswald. So just to wrap up this panel, I would like to, of course, extend our gratitude to you, Oswald, and to our previous panelists under the Tech CEO panel, and to lead us off to the second poll for the day, which will focus on youth awareness of digital trade and use of AI. I will ask Gugu if you can please put up that poll up so that the people in attendance can respond. Once again, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you, Oswald. So just to also highlight that this segment of the webinar is called the Youth Spotlight Intervention. And every single Youth Dome webinar, we're going to be highlighting or spotlighting just one youth business that is breaking boundaries, that is reimagining the framework and solving for specific things. So if you believe that you or someone you know has an intervention that you think we should spotlight in a segment, you should please reach out to us. As Nandi said, we're going to do the second poll. Again, you only have 1.5 minutes to answer these questions, and they're kind of based on what we heard from the tech panel and also from what Oswald's just shared with us. So please go ahead and fill in your answers. There's 3 questions, 1.5 minutes. I think also while you get into the poll, wow, some of you are real quick. The first question reads, before today, have you ever heard about the AFCFTA Digital Trade Protocol? This is a yes or no question, but you could also say yes, but you don't really know what it's about, and that's okay. The second question says, do you think young people are being included when digital trade rules are being made in Africa? This is a yes or no question. So do you think young people are being included when digital trade rules are being made in Africa? Third and last question says, have you ever used AI tools like chatbots, smart assistants, automated systems in your business work? I believe we heard Zanele talk about how they incorporated those in their business and it helped a lot. So have you ever used them in your business or in your work? You have about 20 seconds. So have you ever heard about the digital trade protocol? Do you think young people are being included when digital trade rules are being made on this continent? And do you or have you ever used chatbots in your business? I'm really sorry, in the interest of time is up. I'm going to invite my colleague Gugu to please go through the results very quickly in terms of what we've heard.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Anela, for that. Okay. We're seeing good results. 100% of you have actually answered. This is very interesting. Even though I believe some of the answers don't quite make sense, but cool. So going back to the very first question, as Anela said, before today, had you ever heard about the AFCFTA Digital Trade Protocol, right? 42% of you say yes, which once again indicates good progress about the information being disseminated. 38% of you, however, said no, and 21% of you said yes, but I don't really know what it's about. Which I think if you put in the no and the yes together kind of indicates that there's still quite a bit of work to be done concerning disseminating information around that particular protocol. Then moving on to the second question, this was, do you think young people are being included within digital trade rules that are being made in Africa? 29% of you say yes, with 71% of you say no. That, I think it speaks for itself, right? We want to have more of a voice on certain protocols that directly affect us. And I think the digital trade one is one that is extremely pertinent to us. And then coming up to the third question, have you ever used AI tools like chatbots, smart assistants, or automated systems in your business or work? And 100% of you said yes. That's incredible, guys. That's incredible. I think for me, what would be an interesting follow-up question would be, is that ChatGPT? But I'm guessing it is. Congratulations, guys. I'm sure Oswald, is happy to see that he's got a firm demographic that is rising up for his startup scene. Thanks, Anele, back to you.
Perfect. I'm going to now launch the third and final poll. After this poll, we'll then open up Q&A. Just some housekeeping rules for Q&A. You can either type your question in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen where the question mark is, or you can raise your hand and ask to be unmuted, and then we'll unmute you and then mute you back. But this is the last one. Let's do this a minute and a half starting now. Let's see if we can get as good as answering as before. Poll 3, first question says, do you think government rules are keeping up with new digital tools like e-commerce and AI? Do you think that government rules are keeping up with new digital tools like e-commerce and AI? The second question says, if you had support or funding, like Ozzy did, to use tools like mobile money or online platforms, do you think it would help your business grow in Africa, even if your business is not in tech? So regardless of whether your business is in fashion or your business is in creative industry or your business is in logistics, if you had support or funding to use mobile money or other digital tools, do you think that would help your business grow? Third and final question says, should governments and African institutions work more closely with young businesses to build digital trade rules? So, do you think that governments and African institutions should work more closely with young business owners to build digital trade rules? About 10 seconds left. And remember that us, the panelists and the hosts, we cannot participate in the poll. So all of the feedback that Google is sharing is actually from you guys as the participants. I'm giving you an extra 5 seconds because I can see only some of you are only getting to the answering now. I think maybe these questions are also slightly trickier or longer. Okay, guys, it's been 2 minutes. I'm ending the poll. Sorry. All right, Google, over to you.
Anila is so strict, guys. Coming up to poll number 3, the very last one. So the very first question, once again, to reiterate, this was, do you think government rules are keeping up with new digital tools such as e-commerce and AI? 11% of you said yes, and 89% of you said no, which is interesting because I think you as people that are all using AI in this particular room, you're quite aware of what's going on out there. So I think this is a very informed answer. Therefore, coming up to question number 2, if you had support or funding to use tools such as mobile money or online platforms, would it help you to grow your business in Africa, even if your business is not in tech? 100% of you said yes. So guessing that was a no-brainer question. Then coming up to the third and the last question within our poll series, should governments and African institutions work more closely with young business owners to build digital trade rules? 95% of you said yes, 0% of you said no, and 5% of you said, I don't know, which I think is Anila was saying that maybe some of you were provocating between, would it actually be a good idea in working with governments? But it seems like quite a large number of you say yes. Anyway, thank you so much, guys. Those polls were extremely valuable, and they'll help us adjust our agenda of what you guys want to see, not just from us as the Youth Dome, as well as allow us to kind of inform what policy leaders are doing on the continent. Thank you very much. Handing back over to you, Anale.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we are opening up the Q&A. If you have a question that you want to pose to the panelists or to anyone else on the chat, perhaps your fellow youth, please put your hand up or type your question in the chat box. While we do that, I have a question, but my question is for Joshua Faru. One, firstly, I suspected that it is actually color. But every podcast I had seen, people were saying color. But I was like, this looks like it should be color. I'm so glad I was right. And recently, I think it was earlier this month, actually, you guys might not know, but Joshua actually had done a study on the AI Talent Index. I've downloaded it, but I haven't read it yet. So while we are waiting for people to ask their questions, Joshua, can you tell us what is the AI Talent Index? What is it for? And just very quickly in a minute, what were your findings?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you. So yes, we did an AI Talent Readiness Index for Africa. So as I mentioned, that Africa is not one country, it's 54 states. So yeah, we need to look at the nuances at each of those states to develop and deploy AI talent and actually retain the AI talent. We noticed that a lot of guys are taken by global north companies and are so not serving their specific countries. So the AI Talent Readiness Index measures the ability of a given country to develop and retain AI talent. So we are defining AI talent as the guys who train AI models, the guys who explainers of AI models, and the sustainers of AI models. We're actually the ethical component towards it because we do not want AI to become evil. So we are looking at different indicators, more than 20 indicators that point us to that direction. So we have ranked the countries. South Africa is leading. The biggest takeaway that I can share is that the country that has a lot of government support is the country that leads. The country that has very poor government support is the one that performs poorly. That's why you can't see South Sudan, the war-torn countries, Libya, performing poorly. But the countries that governance, and you see, that's why we are discussing policy. Governance and the private sector take hand in hand. That country saw us. So I encourage all of you to go to the Talent Readiness Index. We have a very nice dashboard and a report also, 147 pages, but hang in there. Thank you.
Sorry, if you can please, if you're able, Joshua, can you share the link to where we can download the AI Talent Readiness Index? Okay, questions. I will now ask, first question is from David Meek. Please go ahead, David.
Yes, thank you very much for the program. I see a lot of talents across Africa. So my focus more is on actually moving the real goods. The biggest challenge in Africa today and in businesses around Africa is security of, the physical good. In as much as the digital protocol, the protocol in digital trade is very important, but the physical good is what is important. And so I would love to know who is building technology, to move goods, safely across the continent. Considering, let's say you're moving from Cape to Cairo, you're moving across almost 8 countries, and you're talking about security of you have a vehicle that is maybe $40,000. The payment to the driver is maybe $2,500, and you have a product of almost maybe $500,000. And so damaged goods, damaged packages, delayed delivery, diversion of goods, all of those things in between Cape to Cairo. Is anyone building anything to solve that? And that's what I would love to know. And then
only one question per person, so I'll take this one. And it looks like Solomon might be the most equipped person to answer this. So Solomon, please, if you're able to respond to this question. If you're speaking, Solomon, it seems we cannot hear you.
All right. Am I audible now?
Perfect, loud and clear.
Kindly rehash the question for me, please.
David was asking, is anybody building any sort of, app or anything that will be helpful for moving goods across the continent?
I missed the first part. Could you rephrase?
Okay, I'm going to allow David, just the question part. Please go ahead and rephrase your question.
So the question is, who is developing something to give 100% visibility for the physical movement of goods across the continent, considering diversion of goods, diversion of consignment and all the rest, and also delayed package, delayed delivery, and damaged goods.
Okay, so your question is, who is creating that platform? Is that right?
Yes, Solomon, that's correct. He wants to know who's creating that sort of platform, or is anybody creating that platform where goods can be moved?
Okay, so the way it works, you can't have one central person who is giving you an exact visibility on what is moving where. And this is because there are various actors, right? So if it's sea freight, if it's air freight, if it's land freight, you need to have the principal actor rendering that service to you. So to say, we cannot entrust this single-handedly to the African Union, to an AFTA secretariat. What we can do is just to have, at a compliance level, some oversight. And practically what this means is this, that the various corridors where trades are active will need to have the various participants providing that service. So if you are asking this question from the viewpoint as a technology person, a builder of platforms, then your answer would be that yes, there is room for you to offer that technology service to the actors. And the actors here would be the freight forwarder, the one responsible for lifting the physical good from one point across another border to the other. And by extension, the services required will be what you asked for. visibility on real-time location, the quantity against shortages, and this information would be very valuable to other players like the insurance providers and the actual college providers. So that is one thing. The other aspect is that if you're asking this as a trader, someone who is active in the buying or the selling, or as a value added proposition along the chain, then your answer would be to look up to a vendor who is able to give you transparency in what you are seeing and what you are getting. And a typical example would be what we do here at JetStream. And when we started, our focus was aggregating agricultural exports from Ghana to the West. And what we provided them was an extension of what actually exists. So the shipping lines have ETAs, but they tell you what happens from one port to the other. Afterwards, inland, there is no visibility. What is happening through the various custom stages, there is no visibility. So our value added was to tell you, okay, it's arrived at the ports, it's going through inspection, there are 7 stages, you are currently at level 5 of level 7 until it finally gets to you. So that is how the infrastructure system is situated. And just if you could let me know where you're coming from as a technology person or as a trade actor, that would probably help me fine tune this answer for you. I hope this helps, David.
Yeah, so I'm into technology. So we've built that platform and using satellite aggregation systems and AI as well. So I see your knowledge in this. I think we should link up and discuss more. But we've built that platform for the entire globe, and we're deploying that for the continent. Yeah.
Thank you both.
Okay.
I'm going to take the question from Carol. Carol, are you still there?
Yes,
You
I
are.
am.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much for this insightful webinar. Mine is, I'm Carol from Uganda. I am an SME growth advocate and a digital strategist. So mine is more of a two-in-one question on e-commerce. So there's the absence of a national digital addressing system and low uptake of business websites, say in Uganda, that hinders cross-border commerce. So I'm wondering how we can solve this logistic and trust gap to unlock a borderless Africa for youth businesses. Then when it comes to the cybersecurity aspect, with these rising cyber threats and different data laws across the countries, how can the youth innovators design platforms that are safe, compliant, and trusted across the borders? Do you think we should advocate for a unified African data framework? Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. I happen to know that Afrexim Bank, which is serving the whole of Africa, does have a very similar product, which also is for verification and making sure that, we are not being cyber attacked while we try to trade digitally, especially those who are trading in services. But I'm going to bring in Ozzy. Maybe you want to quickly, in like 30 seconds, address Carol's question. Oswald, are you there? I think we have lost Oswald, but we are also quite a bit over time, so I'm going to end it here. I don't see any further questions. Thank you so much, all of you, for making time to come into this webinar. We'll make sure that a lot of the insights that we've received from the panelists, from yourselves, through our interactions and through the polls is made available to you via knowledge products and other things in the future. The next webinar will likely be in about 2 weeks, where we will be preparing the road to the AFCFTA Digital Trade Forum. This is the first of its kind, as we've never had an AFCFTA Digital Trade Forum. And what we want to know from you and others who join is basically, what are your expectations at that forum? What are you hoping to see? What do you think is missing? But without any further ado, we'll see you soon on the Youth Dome platform. Bye-bye.
Woo! Bye, guys.